I would like to now address or give the floor to Mr. Triestino. And can you talk us through the double standards of the International Criminal Court and how has it been going with the case of Gaza at the moment? Could you talk us through it, please?
Yeah, many thanks again, Lalal, for having me tonight, this evening. I will start by briefly looking at the current situation through the lens of international criminal law, which, as you said, is my field of expertise. I'm a lawyer, unfortunately, I would say. And I would argue that what we have seen since the 7th of October in relation to situation in Gaza, at least, is evidence concerning the commission of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and as it has already been said, genocide. The list is long, unfortunately, of war crimes. I refer in particular to the declaration of the total siege by the Minister of Defense Garland at the beginning of the war. Total siege means deprivation of essential goods, which includes water, food, fuel, and electricity. And we have seen the effect of the total siege, which has also caused the threat of infants in incubators, um, in the hospitals in Gaza, including in the Shifa hospital. We have seen assist to the commission of war crimes, including indiscriminate attacks against civilian populations. And this is not a novelty. All the Gaza wars by the Israeli Authority conducted by Israel have seen the commission of indiscriminate attacks. We can go back to the Operation Cast Lead in 2008, 2009, for instance. Until now. In other words, indiscriminate means attacking directly civilians and civilian objects. And here again, the list is very long. We have seen an excessive use of force, which is also war crimes. I also argue that there is evidence of regarding the commission of crimes against humanity. In particular, we believe that the forced displacement of almost 2 million of people within the Gaza Strip, where there is no safe place, amounts to the crime against humanity of forced displacement, which could also be deportation when Palestinian civilians move to Egypt through the Rafah border. And also, unfortunately, there is also evidence of ongoing commission of genocide. Genocide means, legally speaking, destroy a protected group, in this case, the national group of Palestinians. In this case, destruction comes to mass murder, forced displacement, and the restriction of basic conditions of life. And we go back to the total siege again. Accompanied by a long list of genocidal statements by Israeli political and military leaders. I mean, Israeli President Herzog said that there are no civilians in Gaza. We should stop with this rhetoric of civilians. Everyone is guilty. A population in which half of the population is minor than 18 years old. So, I mean, this says everything. Netanyahu invoked the Bible in relation to Amalek, saying that to kill everyone, including children and animals. And we could go on. I mean, Carlos was mentioning before Garland using the expression human animals, in relation to Palestinians. And dehumanization is a typical step of both the genocide in the history of human beings. Said that, and going back to your question, I think that all these crimes find a rich soil, a fertile ground in the climate of impunity enjoyed by the Israeli authorities. We are talking of a context in which there has never been accountability for the most serious violation of international law, which may amount to international crimes. There has never been accountability because international community has always provided Israel with this sort of exceptionalism, meaning that the Israeli authorities are above the law and also international law. After Gaza residents, the other victim of this conflict, of this, well, not conflict, of this war in Gaza is international law at the end of the day. At the end of the day. Let's briefly, since we have very few minutes, I mean, for instance, compare what's happening in Gaza with what's happening in Ukraine. In particular, let's look at how the international community reacted to the war in Ukraine in comparison to Gaza. I mean, in Ukraine, we have assisted to the unprecedented call by a huge number of states, in particular Western states, to accountability, to the use of instruments of international law. 43 states referred the situation in Ukraine to the International Criminal Court. They provided exceptional financial contribution to the court. They seconded staff, investigators, something like 42 investigators were seconded to the International Criminal Court. The US, which is not a state party to the ICC, are officially supporting the investigation in Ukraine before the ICC, which is unprecedented because, as I said, it's not a state party. But at the same time, in the same legislative act in which they support the investigation in the UK, they say that they will withdraw every sort of financial contribution to the Palestinian Authority if they continue to engage with the International Criminal Court. I mean, double standards means here discrimination of perpetrators and victims on the basis of their nationality. So there are victims who deserve justice and the victims who do not deserve justice. So these are not only double standard, this is selectivity and is also discrimination, which means racism in invoking, international accountability. Among the 43 states that refer the situation to the International Criminal Court, there are a few European state party to the ICC, which strongly opposed to the investigation, the ICC intervention in Palestine. I'm talking of Germany, Austria, and also the UK, the United Kingdom, and there are also other states in this regard. Which has been the reaction of the International Criminal Court? So these are the states. We will say the international community, more or less, but how has the institution, the tribunal, which has jurisdiction and competence over what's happening in Gaza or what's happening in Palestine since June 2014? Here the competence is of the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, in this case the British barrister Karim Khan, who has exactly followed this policy of double standards. Before the 7th of October, since he took office in June 2021, the prosecutor, when he moved to The Hague, he found an already open investigation, which had been opened in 2021, marched by his predecessor, the Gambian lawyer Fatou Bensouda. For 2 years and a half, the prosecutor has been completely silent on the situation in Palestine. He never put in place any effective investigation. He never sent any investigator to Israel and Palestine. He never took any of the measures that he took in Ukraine, for instance. He never visited the context. He never opened a portal to collect evidence. He never held any press conference. He never deployed any, and again, the list is very long. All measures invoked by Palestinian civil society engaging with the court. I'm talking of Halak in the West Bank, for instance, the Palestinian Center of Human Rights and Al-Mezan in Gaza. The prosecutor discovered the existence of an open investigation in the ICC after the 7th of October. At the end of October, he visited the Rafah border. And after that, he has published several statements. He has also visited Israel and Palestine at the beginning of December. This could be apparently a welcome development, but at the same time has been a faster sign of double standards, because on one side, the prosecutor has been very strong in condemning Hamas attacks, saying clearly that they are international crimes, which is also a bit arguable in light of, some important principle like the presumption of innocence. This should come at the end of the investigation, not at the beginning. And has been very soft and shy in relation to what's happening in Gaza or to the international crimes that I was mentioning before. No mention at all of the situation in the West Bank, of the fact that when he went there, more than 300 civilians have been killed by the IDF or by the settlers' violence in the West Bank. No mention of a long list of violations in Gaza, including the forced displacement I was mentioning before. The prosecutor just, when it comes to these international crimes taking place in Gaza, he just spoke very vaguely about the fact that Israel has to comply with international humanitarian law principles and reminding them which are these principles. This steps, these actions have been strongly criticized by the Palestinian civil society, which they took the unprecedented decision not to meet for the first time with the prosecutor when he visited Ramallah at the beginning of December. What do we know now is that there is an ongoing investigation, but on the basis of all the action undertaken by the prosecutor and all the statements, we are Palestinian victims, the Palestinian civil society, and the legal representative of victims, including myself, are very concerned that this policy of double standards will continue, which will be devastating not only for Palestinian victims, but also for the legitimacy and credibility of the entire international justice project.